Welcome to Ruff Times. Today we're going to be talking about chops versus musicianship in your drumming and what's more important. We're going to be talking about bell kits, beginner percussionist, educational bell kits, and our opinions on some of that. And then we're going to just shoot the bull on DCI Drumlines of the last decade and talk about who was the best that didn't win. We're going to talk about expectations of competition and especially in the drum corps activity. And we got some special news about a summer drumline program coming your way. And that's it. Hey, this is Mark, and we're here with Ruff Times, where it's just a bunch of drummers from Epic Percussion having opinions on the internet. Just what we need. I'm here with Alejandro and Hi. Zach, who's also running sound and cameras and doing all the work. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is I saw a thing going around on social media. It was kind of interesting. I don't know who's running the poll. It's like a poll. I guess we'll run our own poll on this, but it was a conversation about chops versus musicianship as a drummer and what's more important. And it seemed to be the popular thing to say, the trendy thing to say, was that musicianship is all that matters and chops mean not much. Thoughts?
What do you think?
I disagree with the trendy thing. Not that I don't think chops are more important, but I think they might be equally as important.
Are you disregarding it because it's a trendy thing, or because you believe?
Well, you know, I do like to be the what's the word for that? When you're against the popular opinion, what's that word? There's a word I'm looking for. I don't anti. People, I don't know. No, but I think that you can't achieve musicianship without chops. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're I guess it depends on how you define it. Like, if you're simply talking about chops in terms of like how fast I can move my hands, okay, musicianship's more important. But if you're talking about chops in your ability to play a quality double stroke, or, you know, good dynamic control, or good playing zone control, or good discipline on the instrument, to me, those things all kind of go into chops. And if you don't have those things, you can't execute good musicianship. So you might have an idea of what you like. To me, chops are all about conditioning your hands, or, you know, your body to be able to make the sounds you want it to make when you want it to make them. And if you don't have that, then you can't execute the best musicianship that you want to, because you're just kind of like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well,
like,
I was gonna start with what do you define as music? Like, what are the definitions for musicianship and chops? Like,
to me, musicianship would be your ability to express yourself. Though, like, you know, to me, musicianship's here. It's in your head, and it's your ability to put out on the instrument and create the sounds you want to, the way you want to, when you want to. Chops are your physical ability to do that. So, like, you might have a really musical mind, and you might have a really good idea of, like, musical sense and the right dynamic, appropriate touch and things that you want to execute. But if you can't actually physically do those things, you don't have the chops. So it doesn't matter how musically minded you are if you don't have the physical ability to make it happen.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it stands to reason the way we like set up those definitions, that you can't really achieve musicianship without chops, because, like, you can't even talk about all that stuff if you can't, like, pull, like, the way I forgot the exact words you used just now, but you said, like, chops is your ability to or musicianship is your ability to do all these things, but you can't do it if you're not, like, I think I don't know if, because I don't want to say I think they're both equally, like, important, because then that kind of defeats, like, the point of the question, right? Like, which is, if I had to pick one and I was like, which, so I guess we could pose the question, since I don't know if, like, what you saw posed it this way, but it's like, maybe for a new student, right? Or I guess, like, it depends. It would have to be different for, oh my god, here I go thinking, like, like, going off on all these tangents about all these what ifs. I agree with your definitions for the most part. I think the only thing is, like, I would say the chops thing for me, when I think of chops, I think about just straight, like, 12 to 3, like, I could just play loud and fast, or, I mean, even I would even say like soft and fast, and like you have, I guess, like at least a fundamental understanding of dynamics and like musicianship, but you don't really, that's not your forte. Like you're clearly more about like the content than you are like the quality of the content.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what definition and context you put it in.
Yeah.
If you're talking to like the chops of a metal drummer playing blast beats, it's not, it's all chops and
Yeah,
really
they don't
not
need
musical at
musicianship.
all. But I think that's a really narrow understanding of chops, and like to me, chops are like exercises. Like you play exercise, but I think that you can build dynamic chops. I think you can build touch chops. You know what I mean?
That's what
So I don't think it's necessarily all just about how many notes I can fit in a measure.
Yeah. I was thinking about it inversely, where sorry, what did you just say again? You said you're building dynamic chops. So the way I thought was, you need musicianship first for you to understand how to build those.
Oh,
chops.
I don't disagree with that at all. I don't.
Well, that's
like,
what I was saying.
If
Like,
you don't have a vision of what you're trying to create, you can't create it.
Depending on where you are as a musician, because I mean, if I'm thinking like as a new student, it's almost tough because I don't even know which. Like, I mean, I'm sure I'd know once I have like the student in front of me, but I'd probably do musicianship first, right? And then you like you develop their chops in the guidelines of musicianship.
Yeah,
or, like,
I agree with that.
But like if they're older and they have the chops clearly, and like they clearly like, because if you're going in blind or just going off YouTube trying to learn from watching BD or cadets, like you're not thinking about dynamics and stuff. You're just thinking about playing, like barely even thinking about playing rhythms, just kind of getting the macro motions and kind of being able to sort of play with the music. So they're gonna learn chops first the hard way anyway. I guess it all depends.
I'm going to be controversial here too. I think that a lot of people saying that musicianship's the only thing that matters and chops don't matter are people who don't have chops.
Well, I would say yes, because that sounds
and don't
like
want to
me.
put the time in. Because it's real easy to say. And mostly I'm talking about like drum set cats who want to play the boots and cats and boots and that's musicianship.
Yeah.
And like, well, yeah, you could flare it up a little bit with if you had a little bit of chops to go with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying being musically inappropriate, but I do agree with you that I think you have to have a musical understanding so you understand the goal you're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
I think you have to have that first. I don't know that it's more important though, because if you have that but you don't have the chops, it doesn't matter because you can't do it anyway.
Well, I was gonna say you already know how I inherently don't like to just be like, you just need this. Like clearly, if the question was like anything other than which do you need, I would just be like, you clearly need both. Like you said at the beginning, like I think they're equally as important. If you want to get to that next level, but you can't get to that next level without chops. Like you can be I could be as musical as I want playing Vanguard at 80 beats per minute, but if I don't have the chops, I'll never be able to play it that way at the tempo.
Well, there we go. I think we settled it. Chops and musicality, you need both.
But what if you redefined musicality to, instead of playing the right dynamics and the right all of this stuff, you define it as playing what's appropriate for the situation.
Yeah, I mean,
because then you can escape by a lot of the technical stuff, like being able to play fast or being able to do all that stuff by just playing what you think is appropriate for the moment.
What if what is musically appropriate requires a lot of chops?
Well, there's a lot of people that can.
What if you're playing metal?
Yeah, sure, metal, but if you're a metal drummer, then you know the
chops.
skills. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. At that instance, your musicality is chops.
Well, it's like,
but also it could be that you could have to have musical sensitivity and chops within the context of one piece of music. Like there might be.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm trying to think of a good example, but
that's what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying that I'm not saying musicality or chops. I'm saying musicality is chops. I'm saying the same thing you're saying. But like,
I would separate them in. To me, musicality is your brain, and chops are your hands.
Yeah.
So like you have to have both. Like it doesn't matter how high your music understanding is if you can't make your hands execute the music the way you want them to. It doesn't matter how good your hands are if you don't understand the music you're trying to create.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
I was thinking about it in like tons of analogies and like in other layman's terms or whatever, but I thought like it's like people who deadlift. They'd be like, I could deadlift 500 pounds versus like, I don't know, a boxer. And it's like, if they got into a fight, who's going to win? The boxer who's weaker than the guy who can deadlift, or the guy who can deadlift? It's like, it's not what you have, it's how you use it. But at the same time, I thought about it like more so people that move furniture maybe. Like, somebody can be stronger, but if the guy who's stronger lifts with his back, he's gonna be out.
Yeah,
The guy who knows how to lift with what he has, like, will be able to move more furniture. Like, I just kept going off and off in my head.
Yeah,
but I think either way, it's the same conclusion every time.
Yeah. So I think we've solved that for the internet. So all of you people with different opinions than ours, you're obviously wrong.
Yeah, all of you are wrong.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. Like there has to be, and I think we do a good job with our students here. Is like we always talk about, I mean, I literally talk to our students about like where your brain's at and where your hands are, and those things, trying to keep them together. And some kids are a little bit ahead in one area or the other, and just talking about it in that context, I think that really helps them envision their goals. You know what I mean? Like, especially younger kids. We get a lot of younger kids sometimes where like they can play stuff and they don't understand it.
I also think it's so dumb that people even start with like, you need this. Like, it should be both from the beginning. Like you said, why as an educator would you just... I mean, I get why. I guess, I mean, you could argue either. Or like chops is maybe easier to teach because you're not thinking about all the super intricacies. You're just trying to get them to play, because it's easy to play loud, right? You just get them to play loud and in time, and like that's kind of easier to teach than trying to get them to. But why would you even set up a student for any music or even anything you teach at all with a dichotomy of like you either need this or this? It's like you can't just dismiss things like it's everything. It's all of it.
And they're related, so
yeah,
I don't
completely.
know. I just saw that poll and I thought it'd be an interesting thing to talk about, picking guys' brains about a little bit. Anything else to add to that topic? Or we want the next topic?
I think I had a thing, and I'm. Well, I mean, I could just speak from personal experience. Like, I remember I was so ignorant, bro. In high school, like my hands looked really good, and I would always get compliments with, "Oh, your hands look great." But I sounded awful.
Are you talking about like your drumming skills?
Yeah, my
or
drumming, like
you were gonna be a hand model.
No, oh yeah, I was gonna be a hand model, but I cut my hand at some point with like it was like a real thing. I had anyway.
We'll have to elaborate on
nice
that.
Hands for if you ask me. Where's I going with this? Oh yeah, so I would get like really gassed about that. So I would like concentrate on that so bad. I'd be like, I want my hands to look good, and I just sound awful. And like I would never understand like why it was like my hands look good, like so like the sound isn't my problem, like I'm doing my
well,
it's like I'm not blaming any of my educators or anything, but like what it felt like at the time was like I was always like, oh, your hands have to look like this for you to even like have a conversation about anything else. And it's like that, if I had just been presented with the idea that I can mess with my hands to get a better sound, or there are other solutions, but like that was like probably my biggest thing was like I was always just like I need to be musical, and then when the time came for me to play things that were choppy or like inversely things that needed like a certain quality I didn't have, my brain was almost like I just don't understand. I don't understand. Like I couldn't get out of that mindset of this is what I was taught.
But I think people do it wrong both ways.
Yeah.
Because there are people out there who can like play exercises for days and they don't even know why they're playing those exercises. So you like it's important to like when you're working on an exercise, you understand what the musical goal of that exercise actually is and how you can apply it to your musicianship.
Yeah.
But I think that there's people out there who are, and we're talking like let's just talk teaching drumlines. Teaching chops, and they go out there and the drumline's playing forte the whole show. But you also got. But I've also seen, been in rehearsals where somebody's teaching high school drumline and they're talking to them about, some nuanced touch comment about, watching the expressiveness of the crescendo. And I'm just like, your kids can't play these 16 notes in time.
Yeah. So
what are we talking about? Like, if it's not in time, it doesn't matter how expressive it is.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I've seen it both ways. I think a lot of times too, people just like to sound smart.
It's also hard though, because it's like you could not argue it, but like I guess you could look at it from the other side. Like we've had experiences where we play at the highest levels where people don't play in time. Like it's not the most important thing. People don't play up proper rhythms even at like the highest levels of not just like the activity, but like other musical activities. Like you can hear stuff live, and they'll be qualified professionals or like famous groups or people that are professional musicians, and like they're not playing quarter note triplets in time. Like the drum set players playing quarter note triplets, and the other guys are going boom, boom.
I think I told you the story about like I was in this. It was this. I won't name the group, but it was a some symphony gig.
Yeah.
and there's a world-renowned pianist playing, and I think we were doing. I don't remember what piece we were on, but there was a part where the snare drum I was playing with brushes played triplets with the piano, and it was just the two of us playing. Because who am I? Just some schmuck from Central PA. I didn't play triplets because she wasn't. Like I changed. It was something closer to 1E and 2E end. It wasn't exactly that, but it wasn't triplets. Just
free form.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like you get caught up in the argument of like what music is and all that. But
I hear a lot of people too, though, like make the claim that like, well, it's being musically expressive. I don't think it's musically expressive if it's just you not having control of what you're trying to do. Like people hide behind that as like a catch-all for I can't execute this rhythm in time, so I'm just gonna say I'm expressing it the way I feel it.
That's an easy out.
It's not playing triplets.
People have different musical hierarchies. Like obviously in drumline, we're like playing in time. That is clearly number one. But I mean, you talk to a jazz artist, and they're probably like, "Oh, like sound, whatever, like creativity." Like,
well, I agree until you get to the top. Till you get to the top echelons, like then did I say that word right? Echelon.
Yeah, I guess.
Echelon,
well, yeah,
echelon.
even top like jazz
I was
artists,
making fun of people trying to sound smart. Now I'm trying to use words that I can't. No, but I think when you get to the top of those, even then, like they play in time.
I was gonna say even if it sounds like
you
it
listen
isn't,
to the 1 o'clock
like,
band in North Texas, like they're
it's
laying
in
it
there.
down.
They're in that pocket. Yeah.
Yeah. So or like especially rhythm sections, like drum set to bass guitar, and they're just laying it down. A lot of.
I think but I agree that the hierarchy should be playing in time first for high school drum lines. Like,
well, especially in the percussion element. I mean, I'm not saying it's the end all be all for everything, but
playing in time definitely helps everything else.
And I do think that other musicians, trying to say this as inoffensively as possible, I see some programs put so much emphasis in their wind program on tone quality and technique and all these things, and it's great, whatever. But does it really matter when the chord changes, but they didn't change with it because they're a beat behind? They're like essentially now you're playing the wrong note, but you're playing the wrong note because you're not playing rhythms.
I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it's like almost like what's the point? Like,
so it is a big deal, and I don't think it's emphasized enough. I mean, especially when I played with professional musicians who couldn't put a quarter note triplet in time.
I'm thinking like, does it matter if you have a plane ticket if you miss the plane? Like, that's exactly what I thought was like.
Yeah.
You could have it all figured out, but if you miss the plane, you're not playing in time. Like, whatever silly analogy. Like, I mean, it still matters obviously because you're still capable. You're just not doing it at the right time.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, we don't have quite the good things and bad things about a percussionist. We have to play 10,000 different instruments and understand all these different techniques and things for these instruments, but at the same time, we don't generally creating good tone quality is easier for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit easier to master how you strike the timpani than it is to like develop good embouchure to play trumpet or whatever. So I don't know, it's catch-22. Like, it is different, and I understand there's different priorities sometimes, but just play in time, people.
Yeah.
Just play in time. Just put rhythms in time.
It just makes it's literally just like makes everything easier, and just why not? Like I feel like there are very minimal arguments as to why you should prioritize anything over playing in time.
Get that metronome out and get the work. All right, next topic I want to talk about. Now that we're pitting ourselves against other musicians, I want to talk about beginning band, elementary band rentals. Now, I've been talking about this for a long time, but I'm excited to talk about this publicly like this for the 7 people that are going to see this.
3
percussionists. You might not know this if you're not a percussionist, but other musicians tend to look down their noses at percussionists, like we're the especially when you get into like the orchestral side of things, and it's annoying. The drummer jokes. Oh, you just hit stuff. But I think that starts all the way back on day one. when you have rental night and beginning instrumental music, and you know the
I'm so sorry. You have to explain to me what rental night is. I don't.
well, rental night is like the first night everybody has decided what instrument they want to play, and this is where, you know, the music store comes in and the parents and the students pick, you know, what instrument they're going to rent, and they sign their lives away and they rent that instrument for the next 3 years or whatever. So that's what it is. And basically what happens is everybody comes in and rents their instrument. And we did this for a little bit. We kind of got out of it, and Mike, you'll be getting back into that pretty soon.
Wait, so I'm sorry. So the school doesn't own any of the instruments?
Well, depends on the school. I mean, every school's a little bit different, but generally, no.
That's it. Like all the instruments are the schools where I grew up in Jersey. Like we never.
Yeah, I know. At Williamsport, it's like at Williamsport
hybrid?
School District, it's like a hybrid. They have the school
That's
owns
amazing.
instruments, but it's sort of like, I don't know exactly how to decide. I think it's based on income, but school owned or the expense of the instrument. I think it's some kind of like a tuba might be a little bit too expensive, so the school owns some tubas and stuff. But if you play trumpet, you have to meet some income requirement to get one of the school instruments.
Fund the arts.
Otherwise, you're expected. Well, you know what? Actually, I don't.
I can't imagine the marching band I participated in probably ever working out if we had to pay for instruments. Like,
well, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's not a bad thing if there's investment on the student and parents' part.
Yeah.
Because then there's more commitment.
Yeah.
There's less likely that the kids will drop out
I
after
bought
a
you
year.
this.
Right. And also, like, if there's an exuberant number of kids that want to participate in a program, it puts a huge cost on the school. I don't think it's necessarily all bad.
I don't think it's all bad. I'm comparing it to
But
my
I don't think a
experiences.
kid should be turned away because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I do think
Especially
that, and that does happen at some schools too. So I do think that there should be a way to meet in the middle where kids who can't afford it do it that way, but kids who can't have another path.
Yeah.
Some
kind of.
But all that aside, that's not the point.
Sorry. I needed all this information before.
The point I wanted to get to is you go into these, and even if it's not a rental per se, it's not even what this is about. It's about the instruments themselves. If I want to play trumpet in 4th grade, I get a trumpet. If I want to play a saxophone, I get a saxophone. I could play that saxophone until I graduate high school. I could pretty much play that saxophone my whole life unless I'm going to go like professionally or go to school for music. Then I might need a better instrument. But they're all real instruments. If I want to play percussion, I get this piece of crap Fisher Price bell kit that like sounds like somebody stabbing you in the brain with an ice pick. It has first of all, like plastic rubber mallets that do not feel like anything you'll ever play with beyond 5th grade, and the smallest targets for young kids with the poorest dexterity they're ever going to have as a percussionist, and a cheap snare drum or a drum pad. Like, you just get garbage.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
You just get garbage. And then we wonder why there's so many percussion kids who don't want to play mallet instruments. Well, that's your introduction to that instrument. Why would you want to play that thing?
Yeah.
Why would you enjoy it? Who enjoys listening? Parents don't enjoy listening to it, so they're not encouraging their kids to play it.
Is that like band directors' fault, or do companies not make good bell kits?
Well, there are alternatives, but there's just too much acceptance of this is how it is, and I think a lot of it is portability. They could take it home.
Well, I was gonna say that,
and
probably
like that.
most people are just not well versed.
But you know what happens?
Understanding
You know what happens to all these bell
instruments.
kits? They play it for 6 months, maybe even the whole first year, and then you see it in a yard sale in 4 years after it's out in the closet.
Yeah, that's what happened to mine. I started out in 4th grade. I got a snare drum that only had 5 tension rods on the top, so you couldn't tension it evenly, and one of those student bell kits. And my student bell kit, when we moved, I started band in like 2004. When we moved in 2009, I found it.
Yeah,
So I didn't even know where it was.
Well, and these kits cost sometimes $700.
Wow.
Yeah,
And I mean, until they
ridiculous.
rent them to term, you're talking like a $30 monthly thing or whatever, but you rent it for 2 years, 3 years. But I'm just like, the saxophone kids, a rental saxophone, $1,600. Maybe you get a used one for $900 or something like that. $1,600. I'll get you a mallet station that can sound like an electric guitar if you want.
And an amazing
and a
snare
drum
drum.
set.
And
I'll
a
hook you up
whole
with a
drum
drum
set.
set.
Yeah, a whole drum set.
Like, why can't we give kids real stuff that makes these things that they can use throughout their percussion career, real instruments that they can really learn to play on with good techniques?
I'll tell you why.
You know what really grinds my gears?
It's this.
Yeah, I
It's
just
the money.
But the difference is that like a mallet station, like that's not just a entry level instrument. You can use that like
For the rest of your
for
life.
literally for the rest of your life.
you
And
can
it's
use that
like,
professionally.
I was going to say, you
Before-
can also use it for anything but marching music. Like, you could just use it to mess around with,
You
like...
can use, they use them in.
Yeah.
You see them in DCI front ensembles.
and they're practically indestructible. Like they are very solid instruments.
Plus, it plays into
And we sell them at Epic
these
Percussion.
kids. Nice plug. But it also plays into like kids love technology and
Yeah.
it's
Amazing. Like, they'd get...
It's adaptable. Like pretty much the mouse station is just the hardware, but the software you can update, you can change.
Dude,
you can,
that's a YouTube
can hook it
like
up to
rabbit
GarageBand
hole.
if you
Like
want to.
you, if somebody
Yeah.
gets stuck in that, I would rabbit hole with a mallet station. Like, there's so much you can do with it.
and they can make it sound like literally
Anything, literally anything.
anything. It would be very easy to make the worst possible rental instrument for kids into the best possible rental instrument for kids.
Yeah.
If people just changed how they thought about it and were a little bit more open to new ideas and creative about it and
So-
looked at this as an actual, I mean, to me, you know, we're in the trenches with this every day. And it's a real, like we have to really work to get our kids interested in mallet percussion, and we have to really work to make it cool for them. That's always been a hurdle, especially in this region. There's other parts of the country doing better than our region, but that's always a battle. And to me, that's like the beginning of it. Is the way the kids are introduced to it sucks.
Yeah.
So who are the people you're talking about when you said people need to be more open? You mean like directors or parents or everybody?
I wouldn't put it on parents because I just think they don't know.
Well, yeah, they're.
You know what I mean? Like,
But
they're
at the
going
same
with-
time, like,
but I think it's between directors and retailers.
But
The only defense I'll have of it is there are options that are very affordable. I just don't see that being used a lot. I see most of is retailers pushing
like mid-range stuff.
pushing $700
Yeah.
bell kits.
Yeah.
That to me is
That's
absolutely
insane.
stupid. Like if you're gonna get a bell kit for a kid, there's ones out there that are $150. Like get
that,
those.
yeah.
$150 in a drum pad. Cool, you're off and rolling.
Even if you get one of those and like a first act drum set, like even if the drum set is garbage, at least they have like equipment within their price range and it's like usable and it's not just like you said like an investment that is gonna just.
But I don't think that should be the first option.
No,
I
absolutely
think the
not.
first
That's
option
last
should
resort.
be you should not be giving percussion kids a lower end experience than you're giving the saxophone kids.
Yeah,
And that's what typically happens. Yeah.
Yeah, like if we can expect those kids to pump out $1,600 to rent a real instrument, give the percussion kids a real instrument too. And straight up, yeah, talk to me. If you're interested in that, hit me up, comment, send me a message.
That guy sells drum stuff.
marc@epicpercussion.com. Hit me up. Let's talk about it.
We'll guide you to the light.
I'd love to hook you up with a better option than stupid bell kits. Any other thoughts on that?
I think on top of that, even just like all of the other possible options that they could have for instead of the bell kit and snare drum would get not even just percussion kids, but all kids more excited about band in general. I think that it would be a good catalyst for the entire program.
I mean, honestly, even if money's the issue, just get a drum pad and a pair of sticks and learn how your hands work.
Yeah.
Dude, you could get pots and pans. You can
Yeah.
get pots and
Yeah.
pans. I've seen
Don't-
NYC Times Square drummers that are better than me. Like all they do is practice on pots and pans. Like
I just don't see a reason to waste money on something that you're going to be trying to offload at a yard sale for $50 in 3 years.
I agree.
and that also does like harm outside of like its financial burden and like equipment grade. Like it also just hurts the image and like you said the kids
Hurts your
don't
ears.
feel hurts your ears. Like
All right. The best DCI
oh my
drum
God,
line
this is,
of the
I
last
didn't even think
decade
about this.
that didn't win. Who is it?
Okay, can we
I actually don't know this yet.
Can we go through the years and like remember what like happened every year?
Oh,
What's the first year? You said decade?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you're talking 2010?
let's start with 2010. It was 10 to 20 since it really wasn't.
Who won in
20.
2010?
Phantom Regiment.
It's gonna get my iPad.
I'm gonna
No,
get
2010 was Cavaliers. Mad World. They won drums. that year.
drums.
Yeah, right? Or no, it was Phantom.
It was definitely Phantom, right?
Phantom won drums in 2010. Cavaliers won drums in 2011.
I don't have any knowledge of any of this.
Hold up. We have technology that I can't unlock.
But we're looking for the best drumline that didn't win.
Well, that's why I want to be able to compare the ones that didn't win to the one that did win. DC. Who did I even Google? DCI.
I searched DCI scores history.
Yeah. Drum championships. DCI drum champions. I'm googling it like somebody who's never even done it. Oh, but it comes up. But it just says how many they have.
Oh, it's also only DCI's website only tells you who won. It not even just
Well, that's
percussion.
all right.
Not just percussion though, just overall one.
Oh,
gotcha.
Reddit has a whole thread about the groups and their instructors from the 70s. Okay, so what do we say? 2010.
Yeah.
Phantom Regiment with Rennick.
Yep. And then 2011 was Cavaliers. I know that. 2012, I don't remember.
BD won. I remember because I loved them that
They
year.
won
And
drums?
Cadets, yeah, they did Cabaret Voltaire. They had like these little hand symbols, and they had like blue. It was amazing.
I don't
Show was
remember them
amazing.
winning drums.
Yeah, they
Well,
won. Drums.
I can't remember, so I take your word for it.
Cadets
2013
did-
was Cadets, right?
Yeah,
Side by
2013.
side
I
by
think
side.
that one was well deserved, but we're talking about ones that didn't win, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we said of the whole decade too, right?
Yeah. 2014.
That was Vanguard with Rennick.
Vanguard. Yeah, that was Scheherazade.
15 was Blue Devils with Ink.
Yeah, that I thought that, especially that snare line.
Those
was
guys showed
ridiculous.
up and laid
14?
it down.
15 was Blue Devils.
Yeah,
14
16 was
14
Vanguard,
was
17
Vanguard.
was Vanguard, and 18
was Vanguard.
and 19 was Vanguard too.
Yeah, I don't know if 16 was. I think they went 3 years in a row.
16 was
was
Vanguard, 17 was Vanguard. Yeah, because 19 was their four-peat, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's the first time it's ever been done. I
I
don't know if anybody ever won drums
Four times in a row.
Yeah, because I remember it was a big deal. Cadets won.
Cadets
Blue
won
Devils
3
did.
times in a row. Yeah.
Blue Devils did it in 83.
Before Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.
Oh, okay.
Are you on the same Reddit thread?
I am.
I don't know. I'm not on the Reddit.
On the Reddit. I need to make more internet.
Gotta use the internet.
So we're just talking 2010 to now.
Yeah, like last.
Well, I mean, we
decade-ish.
lost a year, right? So.
Yeah. So
So who's the best drumline that didn't win?
Okay, so could we talk about our
20
favorite?
2019. I mean, a lot of hype around Crown.
Wait. Can we also say what do we define as the best?
Your
Like,
opinion?
It's just strictly okay. So then we could.
Who do you
but-
think should have
yeah,
won?
we-
drums?
yeah.
are you talking drumline or percussion
You're the
ensemble?
percussion judge.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't care how you're
I'm
reasoning
just
it.
so biased towards the ones that I like for reasons.
I think
are
that
very valid.
one that was talked about a lot was Crown in 2019.
Crown
That's really
2019.
fresh in our minds, though. We want to make sure that we're not current biased.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So try to think back through the beginning of the decade too. I
mean, 2010.
mean, I loved Cavaliers 2010, but I don't know if I could put them over Phantom.
No. I think.
Yeah.
2011.
It was
we
Cavaliers.
Cavaliers. Yeah.
Cavaliers won.
had. Yeah, they were so good that year.
All their stupid features were their.
I don't even want to take. I mean, because then you just have to rescind the whole year, right? If they won, because it's like, yeah, they deserved it.
And nobody else stands out to me that year as like. Maybe there was
Yeah.
somebody, but it was a little long ago.
2012, BD was very, very good. They were very, 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 like, I remember seeing them in the lot, and they knew before they even walked on. It was just like,
Yeah.
I could just see, it was crazy. Like, the energy was crazy. That video's on YouTube, and it's just people yelling at them. Like, there's like these two dudes. I remember because you can hear it in the YouTube video, and I remember from my own nostalgia, like, I was standing right next to them, just hammered, going like, let's go intro, like, just freaking out. And
Yeah.
them just like stone faced. It was amazing. But 2012, I don't even remember the drum. Cadets did the 12-24 that year. They did the Christmas show. They were actually really good
That was
that year.
solid,
I liked them
yeah,
that
that was
year.
solid.
Yeah, they were really solid.
You don't tell Matt Kravitz I said that.
Um,
Fa la 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 la, Matt Kravitz.
What did we talk about in 13? We were talking about some 13 drumline. I really love Blue Stars in 13.
What they
I
play?
think they did the Voodoo show. It was like the first year they tilted and like.
Oh, that
West
was when they
Coast.
got the box 6 guys. Yeah.
13 was cadets though. They were amazing. I don't remember what BD did that year. Oh, they did Rite of Spring. Yeah, I think I liked cadets more that year.
Yeah, I don't know if I disagree with any of the calls that were made. I will say that this might get me in trouble. I do. Here. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
I think that the last couple years there have been batteries that were better than Vanguard. I think that last year I would put Crown and maybe even cadets.
I put BD, man.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'd have to.
Like I know that whatever they had the perfect score on finals night, but like the demand was literally unreal. Like the demand and like the command they had over their instruments.
I'd have to do some, but I also like demand's great, but did they also achieve it all of it?
I watched finals and I heard they gave them a perfect score finals night, but Vanguard beat them with the average, like with the 3-night average.
I think that's the dumbest thing ever.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother. It's just like, I mean, I get it, I get the argument, but I also get like
show
nothing.
of the day.
Like
Come
if
on.
I mean, I told you like I play cards like whatever as a hobby, and like if I go to a tournament and my average is good overall, but I lose like a top match, I still lose. Like I'm out. Everything else, like you're out.
I also think it like just brings into, do we not trust the judges? Do we not trust their expertise? Because it sounds like we don't. It sounds like we have to take it out of their hands and they can't call the show of the day and hand it to, I think it's bad for the activity when you can't have a great show on finals night and upset things.
I know.
I think that's bad. Like anything that makes it, you want the competition to be exciting.
Do you agree with him, Zach?
I mean, I don't. I agree that the show of the day thing is like, I feel like it should be a show of the day.
I just wish somebody who would argue the opposite.
My question is, do you know how that rule came to be? Like, was it something like core directors?
I'm sure. I mean, they all vote on it
because I know like
it was recent
that same,
though. It was
the last
like
couple
20
years, yeah.
16,
a similar thing to that. Like there was a
sometime in the last 5 years.
I don't remember if I'm pretty sure it was WGI, but there was a group. I think it was Rhythm X that their truck broke down, and on finals night or something like that.
I was just talking about. There was one where RCC came in 15th.
15th, but they still made finals.
Yeah, they made because they're electronics.
Because they're electronics, like, is it?
Or is MCN? No.
But something like that.
I
feel like
RCC. It was definitely RCC.
I feel like it's the same. I feel like that the rule of the averages thing is because of something like that.
Oh,
yeah, but I don't care.
I agree. I don't. It's not my fault. Or
here's
Mark's traumatized from.
Here's a scenario I'll throw at you. This could happen in the current rule. You could get second place every night and win drums.
Yeah, because your average is higher. Yeah.
Is that
what
we want? Is that the world we want to live in?
Wait. Oh yeah, but that would assume that 1 and 3 fluctuate, right?
But it happens all the time.
Second.
Yeah, it's not unheard of.
Happens all the time.
Hashtag 2014.
So you could come out and I mean, consistency is important in what we do. But if you're consistent, you're gonna have a great show at finals.
Yeah.
So what do you need the crutch for?
I agree. I'm just upset we don't have somebody who's arguing the other
side
end very well, because it's like we're all on the same page. Well, okay. I really want to hear from like somebody who.
But I think that the ruling came around because of something like if we have if there's a tempo tear in the middle of one of the segments during finals, their drum score doesn't get tanked because of it.
I mean,
like there's still a chance of them contending even if they.
But should they?
Yeah, that's the point. Is like whoever was the.
What
best.
about the group that didn't have a tempo tear?
Yeah, like you could
what
have
about the group that threw down on finals night like you're supposed to.
You know what? I mean, I don't want to speak for them obviously, but like I'm sure none of those guys in that percussion section BD 2019 were like, man, like I mean, I'm sure they were bummed out they didn't win, but I don't think it took away from their experience. Like they showed up and like they were just like, we know we're doing very well, and we know that we're like.
Well, yeah, but I think that's true of any group.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
I'm not like, I'm talking like from the competitive spectator standpoint of view. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, if we're just gonna go out there and make it where scores don't matter, then just eliminate the scores.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna do it, then do it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes I get a little frustrated with the conversation around that. Like, it is a competition. And, you're not allowed to talk about winning and losing in band. You have to
talk about the education.
You're only allowed to talk about the education and the experience.
We shouldn't even be having this poll about which
right. And I mean, whatever. Maybe it's more for the fans than anything, but fine. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a bad thing to talk to students about winning and losing if you're doing it in a healthy way and that's educational. Like, losing is a part of life.
Yeah.
And teaching kids how to, you might put everything into something and still not
still
win.
Lose. It happens all the
That's
time.
not a bad lesson to learn. So why is that taboo?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Like,
it's the presentation.
Yeah, like you could have a blow up at finals and you lose. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
granted, it's also like it's really irresponsible when situationally a group doesn't have a chance of winning. You shouldn't be talking to them about winning.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that does happen.
Yeah, we've all done it.
But I don't think it's necessarily bad as a motivation. I also don't think it should all be about that.
Yeah, if your motivation is about winning, when you take away the incentive of winning, the entire thing falls apart.
But I just, in the last 10 years, I've noticed like you're not allowed to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why we're here,
can't
to talk about it. Rough
it.
Times.
And you're definitely not allowed to give, question a judge about it.
I mean, it's just annoying. It's so annoying because it's just like the whole like progression of like us. I mean, we drove way away from the topic, but like the whole thing about like we can't do this. It's like everything is involved. So why do we like even omit anything? Like we know this is all a part of the activity. So why would you? That's basically deception. You're telling them that like it's not a part of it. Like even if you could like, I mean, this is what I try to do. I don't know if I successfully do it every time, but I try to kind of like oversee the group in the sense that like all the groups that I have been in charge of that like that winning is that competition is a part of it, but it doesn't mean anything. Like it's just an opinion, whatever. This and this. It's still, even if like which I am very thankful for. Like the last my last middle school drumline. I remember they came in second and they started cheering. Like it was only 2 drumlines. It was like us and some other group, and they were like in second place. Community Charter School Patterson. They all start screaming and freaking out. I was like, they know it's a part of it for them, but they don't care about it. Like just because it's a part of it, like it's all the way it's presented, and for people to just be like, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, it does matter. You can teach them that it will matter, and like you might see things a certain way, and like it might make you feel a certain way, like it's taken away from your experience. But learning to cope with that and to understand it is like the bigger part of the educational side. You're doing so much harm by being like, oh, it's not a part of it, because then when it does become a part of it, they're like, wait, like I was told. Well,
and I also think we're being like, we're talking about high school kids and college age kids. They're not stupid.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they have the internet too. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just, and
they've won and lost at other things too.
I just don't know. Like we don't need to. I just don't think it's good policy to shelter them or I don't want to say lie to them, but it kind of is. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think that's necessary. I just think it's necessary to talk about it in a healthy way. Yeah. And in a way that I mean, some of the problem with our activity, and maybe this is why we steer the conversation away from that, is because if you try to talk about the competitiveness of it, you're going to end up in a conversation about the
reasons why
and the lack of equality in the activity, and how real competition is impossible. And what I mean by that is like, I've always worked with groups that had shoestring budgets where we had to sell ham and cheese sandwiches to buy drum heads and whatever. I've literally had ensembles where my entire budget for the season was less than some groups spend on a mixer.
Yeah.
Like competition's impossible at that point.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't seem like the circuit is, or anybody around the circuit is interested in having a conversation about leveling the playing field in that way. And I just don't, we look at things like the mid-90s, the NFL, and not that we're the NFL, but the mid-90s, they had a problem where it wasn't competitive enough. You had the Cowboys winning every year because they just outspent everybody. Well,
no, they haven't won.
We're literally having the same groups win every year because they outspend everybody. So what they do, they put in a budget cap, a salary cap, and it'd be a little hard to do, but I think you could put in something like a production cap.
Yeah.
Turn in the receipts you spent on the show, limit the amount of money they're allowed to charge kids for tuition, which I think is a huge topic I want to go into. That's I think the biggest problem with the activity today, bigger than COVID.
Wait. Before we get into that, we have to answer the question that we started with. That's what I keep like. We have to trail back.
Why do you gotta?
I'm sorry, I knew you were ready for it, but
holding
no.
us accountable.
Yeah. We'll hold it. It'll be good. It'll be a lot of pent up rage. I was actually gonna stem off with: do you think any of the batter or percussion sections that won and like that we're discussing in the past 10 years won because of the arms race, like because their equipment was nicer, shinier?
Not necessarily directly though. I think what happens is the kids that, you know, for an activity that tries to think of itself as all inclusive and
that's the
and
word.
and you know what, when I marched, I definitely felt like that. I thought like this is the most inclusive thing I've ever done, but that was 20 years ago too. But I also think that, you know, this activity is very blatantly favoring the kids with more money and the kids with more resources and the kids that don't have to work jobs. And
you gotta hold it. We gotta answer the questions.
That sucks. That sucks. And but I think, you know, those kids are also able to dedicate more time to the activity, obviously. And they also can afford to march at the places that have the best equipment and the best gear and have the best presentation and get the most market time and get the most promotion. And, you know, so the activity does a lot to drive those kids up to those groups. I don't know. It's certainly from, it looks good. It looks good on the ads. It looks good to put those videos out. But what are we doing to the bottom of the activity? You know? Most of the changes and rules that have been put in place for the last 20, 30 years have all been about benefiting the top of the activity.
Yeah.
And we don't ever do anything to benefit the bottom of the activity.
Yeah.
And
like we had ensembles a couple of years ago that can't compete anymore because they weren't meeting basic guidelines of like, safety.
Well, and granted, I don't want to give groups an out like without any accountability because they ran their organizations poorly.
Yeah,
like because that's definitely a thing too. But at the same time, like, man, if it cost this much when I was this age, I never would have been involved.
Yeah,
I never would have marched. I like to pay my dues. I worked a part-time job at the grocery store, and I sold Krispy Kreme donuts. Like that's how I paid for my tuition. My tuition was less than $1,000, and we did a semi-full. I mean, we toured the whole summer, but we didn't tour the whole country, which that in itself is ridiculous.
Yeah.
There are kids paying over $5,000. That's nuts.
Well, like I actually have a really good segue with this and the drumline question is you actually, like, when I toured in 2019 with Raiders, I actually got to see like the lower half of the activity in open class where like it gets no coverage, and like even in open class as you go up the scores, like there are more and more props involved, but at the same time it still had like it felt like there was still a price cap. Like clearly a lot of these groups like could not afford the world class props that some groups have. But there was still a lot of just marching band moments. Like there was still a lot of band left. Like I swear the word I was thinking of is like a lot of really good percussion sections making the most with what they had. Like a lot of kids playing well through their snare drums that have lugs falling off and marimbas that have broken keys. Like there was a lot of that, and I honestly like. I mean, obviously enjoy seeing that more. And as a seasoned, performer, educator, or whatever, like, because I know what it's like to. It's obviously not obviously, but it's a little harder to like be in the moment as a performer when like there are still other variables. Like if you're like playing for the Blue Coats, like you don't got to worry about like your electronics going out or like this and like being ready for all these things. You're 100% zoned into like whatever it is that you're playing, and like some of these kids like would have equipment failures mid show and deal with it and recover, and like it was great. Like the amount of like like dealing with adversity that I saw over open class tour was really inspiring for me. And like it's a shame that we don't see that on the world class level. I mean, you still see world class groups struggling and stuff, like not being able to keep up with the arms race. But like seeing it like at the top at the activity is a little discouraging, because you want to see like, I mean, we talked about it the other time. What it's like mostly about, it's just like I want to see like, why can't it just be more about the drumming and like less about like the arms race? Well,
that's the thing that bothers me more than anything about it is I feel like, especially in the last 10 years, maybe 20, but there's definitely been a shift where I feel like it is the competitive success of the group is being more determined by how much money they can pump into it and by the 5 people designing the show than it is by the 150 kids performing it. And that sucks. Like
that's also a money thing.
Yeah, and then that, to me, that's also, we're approaching like, okay, now when is this a professional thing and not an educational thing and not an amateur competitive thing? It now.
Yeah, we touched on it last time with the football players, the Penn State people,
and like college athletes. Like when is this? When we talk about this being a little bit exploitative?
Yeah.
And like, do the kids at that point need educated, or are they just professional performers, putting the vision of somebody else's show on the field?
And
we're turning those people into rock stars and they're making careers out of this. But, sticks named after them and like all this stuff.
You could
talk, and I don't ever hear anybody talk about this stuff, and I'll probably get flamed for it or whatever. And I'm not saying anybody's like, we don't have any Jeff Bezos of marching band or anything. But you know what I'm saying? Like we are charging kids $5,200 to march a season of drum corps.
Well, and the crazy thing is, like, in 2019, when I watched Blue Coats live, it was amazing. I was just like, wow, this is such a production. Like, it was like you could probably show a trailer of their show, advertise it, and sell tickets to normal people. Like, it wouldn't even be activity exclusive. Like, somebody would be like, wow, this is a show. Like, this is like Cirque du Soleil. Like I mean, you could argue that a lot of the performers are being asked of more than what you see on Broadway, or like people actually getting paid for this. And like, sure, again, we talk about they're paying for the education, but how much of that money is really being allocated to like educating and not like the arms race and the things that we say don't matter and we teach that don't really matter but do matter.
No, and it's a lot of the people doing the best work in the trenches, teaching the kids that don't know anything and don't have any experience, and turning them into accomplished musicians and performers, get the least amount of credit.
Yeah.
And the people who get kids who are already ballers, who just have to write a show and they can write whatever they want because the kids can play whatever they want them to play, get all the credit in the world, and it's just
and they didn't do any of the legwork. Like,
I mean, and I'm not saying they don't do anything, like, or that they don't deserve to be there, that they didn't put their time and work in or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like,
to say that it has no influence is like the point we're getting at. Is like it clearly has, because I mean, even in the question I keep like trying to like think about, going back to the whole best drumline that we think in the past decade. Like, are people seriously going to argue that like that the arms race has nothing to do with it? Like, sure, the people, don't get me wrong, again, like, we're not getting flamed. The performers are so talented and like all this going on, but like you could like, if you just look, I like to sometimes look at things mathematically, and it's like 100% of the groups that have won have the nicest equipment. Literally 100%. Like we talk. I mean, we had that conversation earlier. I don't know if you want to segue into that on here, but about like how in '97 people were using regular marimbas, and we got into.
That is crazy. I was watching a video of I was watching the video of the cadets from '97. So all of a sudden, the last like 6 weeks, all these like old drumline footage videos have been popping up on YouTube like crazy, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like, where did all this footage come from all of a sudden? But it's been interesting to go back and watch, like, not realizing how much has changed, but watching, like, I found a video today of, like, I think it was cadets 97 playing on like 4 1/3 octave, like bass model Adams marimbas. Like the kind of stuff the groups I teach play on.
Those are too nice for the groups you teach.
Pearl, sponsor us.
But like that would not fly today.
No, not at all.
The company wouldn't let them use those instruments if they wanted to today.
So let me pose this question: do you think if Vanguard showed up with bass level equipment, they would get like knocked for it? Like, you think they would lose a championship even if they were deserving?
I mean, that's a ridiculous scenario to even contemplate.
Well, I mean, I think in order for the simulation of the arms race to be broken, that would have to happen. Like, Vanguard would have to go, or BD would have to go out with base level equipment and then just beat anybody anyway. People would be like, I guess we don't need this stuff to win. Like,
technically on the sheets, it's not a thing,
but it's,
But it will be because those companies want everybody to buy the high-end instruments, and they put those high-end instruments in the field.
It's also...
So to say that you won't be backhandedly punished for that...
Well,
it's
how
also...
about we... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
We could segue into when BD was using their drums and all the popular opinions about what are they called, Natal? Or they stopped using them? Or?
Natal doesn't manufacture. Now it's actually Ludwig.
Yeah, whoever
But
was
it's System
making their
Blue.
drums
System
before,
Blue drums.
System Blue drums. A ton of people have very strong opinions about how those aren't the best, and they won championships with that. So, does that it's like clearly breaking the idea of the arms race? I mean,
I think
still has high end equipment all around besides that, right?
But I think that the problem with that analogy is that I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. But the System Blue drums cost a lot more than.
Oh.
They are expensive. They're not a ton more, but they're probably like 10% more.
But even their
okay, so it's still an arms race.
Yeah, their their mallet instruments are more expensive than.
But the other thing is, Blue Devils aren't coming out and using that gear because of that. They're coming out and using that gear because they get to brand it as Blue Devils drums. And you know what I mean? Like it's helping their brand.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's.
I mean, so then.
But I think that a big thing, right, is that sure a group shouldn't get knocked like on the sheets for having base level equipment, but a judge hears with their eyes. So if they see stuff,
and there's also and it's like, well, that's not a Rosewood sound.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Superficial stuff that doesn't. It's like people seeing with their eyes and judging it based on what they see.
Rosewood definitely sounds better than synthetic keyboards. I'm not saying it's an arbitrary difference, but and this is like a topic we'll talk about later when Ryan's here. But it also maybe it's irresponsible to use Rosewood in a summer outside
at
marching
all
activity.
Yeah,
just burning through an endangered wood at lightning speed.
Yeah, like
and instruments that should last 20 years.
10 years ago,
destroying in a summer.
10 years ago, a Rosewood marimba was around like $10,000 to $12,000, and now they're close to $20,000. That's crazy.
Do you think this is as a result of like the activity evolving, or like human greed getting into the activity finally? Like now that there's a means for the activity to be profitable, greed finally set in. Like, was greed being kept at bay when the activity wasn't asking for as much money? Because you can see this in everything else. Like I mean, we talk about it. Like people get MacBooks for college, and all they use is Microsoft Word.
Well, I wouldn't.
Or they get iPhone 12s, and all it's just a Facebook scroller. Like it's always an arms race and fashion, anything, literate cars, anything. So
yeah, it's definitely a factor.
All these things have already been like very prevalent. Like, did it just finally get in because there's enough money for like greed? Because you can't be greedy with like even if I wanted to be an arms race with like, I don't know, get the newest iPhone, get the newest thing, can't do it if I don't have the money. But if you have the money, like you can start getting into that. So maybe it started happening when we crossed that line where like we were asking, our drum corps were asking for more money than they actually needed. And then that's when you get that like gap. Or what's the thing you were explaining to me with the car, paying off the car, the bubble?
The bubble, yeah.
Yeah, once you like pass that bubble, like that's when you're like, oh, why do we need all this money? And it's like, I understand like rainy day funds and all that stuff, but like,
and I'm not saying like the groups can do this, like they can play with the best gear, they can afford it obviously, but at what expense? Like at the what it's directly at the expense of is the accessibility of this activity to kids who aren't rich.
Which is
like this is now a rich kid sport.
80%.
Yeah, I mean, most of the students that I have coming out of the high school level love this activity and can't pursue it much further. Some of them have done a lot of DCA in the past, but the DCI thing and I'm not even talking about
talent,
poor kids necessarily. I'm talking about like just average kids that just they can't afford it, and it sucks because they love it. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I think we have a cool. I'm just gonna talk about it. We have a cool plan. We want to start a. Let me backstory this a little bit. We got spent a lot of time in DCA working with drum corps and stuff like that, and it's especially the last few years, it's been a real struggle to fill out the horn line, and it's also been a little frustrating, with some of the stubbornness in the circuit to allow more kids to participate, like moving the finals date earlier in the year so that college kids can participate and not have to deal with going back to school and still having 2 more weekends, or overlapping, college band camps and all that stuff. And there's been a high interest in percussion. I think a much higher interest than in brass for sure, and probably color guard as well. Starting a summer drumline thing. Like, we're going to try to get that off the ground this year with a group and hopefully turn that into a circuit in the future. And with real stringent, like, attention to making it accessible and affordable for kids to participate and get a really high quality drumming experience without spending a ton of money on, tours and props and stuff like that.
Actually inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. So we definitely have a good plan for that. We'll get out more information about that this week. We're going to be recruiting for that. This, not doing a competitive thing at all this year, just getting out there and playing, navigating through this COVID dystopian society we live in right now. But putting things and organizing things to create a competitive circuit, and organizing it in a safe way, like maybe putting limits on rehearsal hours, definitely considering things like production limits, and what they charge their students, and organizing it by age so we don't have, 14-year-olds and 20-year-olds spending overnights together. That's just asking for trouble. And I think the activity is evolving too slowly on that front.
Absolutely.
Just thinking about, instead of being stuck in the what the activity has always been and trying to appease that. And, it's not that the activity doesn't evolve, it does. But just, this past year, this COVID stuff is really, we could really reinvent things and really reevaluate things. And I'm also not saying excluding guard kids and horn kids and whatever, but maybe sort of like the WGI percussion thing where they can be involved in it. But also not to the point where we're begging anybody to do it just so we have decent numbers. Like some standout musicians who really want to be a part of something cool. We can work with them and, make it kind of creative, but fundamentally building it around the percussion thing.
Yeah. Any inclusivity thing. I mean, I had a lot of older instructors before I started marching WGI, because I didn't even know what indoor was literally till I was like auditioning. Like the year I auditioned, I found out that there was indoor drumline. Like I didn't know indoor drumline existed. But
that some of the sorry,
no,
to interrupt, but some of the accessibility thing is that, and the reason we're not doing this in indoor and more in the summer is because that will make it cheaper and easier to find rehearsal space. You're not competing with gyms. You're not renting rehearsal space. You just need to find somebody with a parking lot that they'll lend you.
Yep.
And it just makes a lot of sense. Yep. I mean, these instruments were designed to be played outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just makes so much sense. And yeah, that's where we're going. So watch for that. Watch for more news and announcements about that coming this week. We're very excited about that.
Yeah. So. No doubt there'll be backlash. Like I was going to segue. Some of my older instructors, when I started drumming, were like, "Oh yeah, I never did the WGI thing. I didn't get it. Like it's too different, too weird for me." And now it's like just as popular as DCI, and it's like the same thing where it's like they just like adapted to it. It's like, well, if people will do it, we'll do it. So like we have to evolve, and it's like, if people are gonna want to drum in the summer, which they are gonna want to do because they want to do it all the time, like it will happen. Absolutely, I'm excited.
So, well, I don't have anything else to talk about. You guys got anything you want to?
We have to figure out the drum line.
That's the last question.
That's the thing I kept trying to come back to.
You gotta. What's your opinion, Mark?
The best drum line. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I kept trying to stop you. And I was like, we gotta answer this question.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna go with. I think the best percussion section of the last decade that didn't win was. This decade. I'm gonna caveat that. I'm gonna go with Crown 19.
Crown 19.
That's a very good one.
Alejandro.
Can I go last?
Sure. My answer. I don't know. That's my answer. Now you're last.
This is so tough because I have so many favorites, but like it's all personal, like taste and stuff. Like, but just overall.
Put it down. Let's go. Who is it? Gotta make a call. Finals night. You're on the panel. Performance is over. You gotta make a call. Who is it?
Oh my god, I have so many favorites. All right, give me a second. Let me look into this list.
Oh my word. Well, you had to like delay the show. This is like DCA finals in 2014. It took them 2 hours to announce the scores. What's going on behind the curtain?
You picked the one that like I was probably gonna pick.
You can pick the same one. It doesn't matter.
No, I don't want to pick the same one. There's got to be more conversation.
I'm gonna go with 2015 Cabs too.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that if you could go back to the early 2000s, it would probably be Capital Regiment.
No, actually, if we were going to talk about the previous decade, I'd say 2008 Bluecoats.
Oh yeah, we were watching
would
the
be-
videos. Yeah,
that
that
would
would
be
be
mine.
so good. Or 2000 Cavaliers.
They won though.
Oh yeah, that's right. Honestly, like that, I think was like my favorite. That was contending, like that really like blew me away. I called it at the beginning of the season. I like really wanted them to win drums, but they didn't end up winning. But they started an amazingly strong season. Is the same year, 2019, but cadets. I
Cadets.
really like.
Agreed.
I remember watching them in Allentown. I was like, holy smokes! Like I just like these
Yeah.
guys showed up to like do
I-
the thing over and over again.
I don't think that Santa Clara didn't deserve to win.
No, exactly. It's
But basically my thought on it is like the front ensemble thing.
Yeah.
Like, they do the front ensemble thing so well.
Well,
I
Cavaliers,
don't
too.
think that they had the best batter on the field that year.
Yeah.
I do think there were some. So basically, what I'm saying is, I think some groups started to chip away at their dominance in some categories,
Yeah.
but nobody has done it enough from a full package standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest deficit is the front ensemble thing. Like I think their front ensemble has been pretty dominant in content and performance clarity.
Yeah.
So there it is.
There it is.
But my
Did you-
favorite
did you,
still.
Did you say yours yet, Zach?
Yeah, I don't.
He does- he said he
I
doesn't
can't
do it.
think of one, so I'm gonna default to. I'm just gonna pull something out of my butt. I know. I'm thinking. The only year that I have any real
Caps
recollection
2015.
of was 2014, and Vanguard obviously deserved
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
the only other one that was exciting to me, percussion wise, was
He's hard to impress.
was Blue Coats.
Yeah.
I don't think their whole ensemble was contending, but I think that Blue Coats was.
They were
They've
very
had some
to
really
watch,
good
yeah.
percussion sections over the years.
I think Blue Coats was probably.
I think they've been pretty consistently knocking on that door.
Yeah.
Just haven't had the one yet.
Oh, you know what? I have another one that's very close. Akil showed me these guys actually. It is Blue Coats. You said Blue Coats. Blue Coats in 2013. I really liked
What
them in
show was that?
2013. It was like the America show.
Oh man, I don't remember that.
They like the writing was like, and like they played so well, and like the video that they have on YouTube is so hype. Like that was another one. That for sure. But cadets were unstoppable that year because they were doing. That's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for hopping on and joining us, listening to our stupid opinions, hanging with
Very
us through this
stupid.
conversation.
Very stupid.
Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something, or if you have an opinion on something or disagree with us, please comment. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Spread the word. Ruff Times, episode 2.